Lord, we just come to you grieving hearts for all those affected in Texas. Lord, it's just things like this we don't understand, but we just have to call on you to to give us peace, to give us understanding, and just let us to seek you in all that we do. We pray for our meeting tonight. We pray for all these people that are here to listen and to share ideas. We pray it's done in a decorum manner. We pray for us up here to listen and to make decisions that we feel best for the city. Lord, we just pray for our city. It's a great city, and we just pray that we can continue to put things in place to keep it that way. Pray this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Thank you. Adam, we had the agenda. Is there any changes to the agenda tonight?
I don't have any changes, no.
Okay. Do I have a motion to accept the agenda as written? Motion by Billy Barnesfield. A second, please. Second by Judy Wheeler. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Motion passes. And has everybody had a chance to read the minutes of last month's meeting? And if there's no changes to the minutes, is there a motion to accept the minutes as written? So moved by Cisco. A second, please. Second by Jeff Parnell. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Item number 3 is a public forum in which we invite citizens to come up and address the board with any questions or concerns. If there are any that would like to address the board at this time, now is the time to do so. Seeing no one walking towards the podium, do I have a motion to close the public forum? So moved by Grady McNeil. A second, please. Second by Billy Barnesfield. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Motion passes. We are now ready for item number 4, Prevost Car Sales, Phase 2. Request site plan approval for additional parking at 800 South Cartwright Street. Is anybody here representing Prevost Car Sales? If you'll come to the podium and state your name, and then we're going to turn it over to Adam at that time.
Hello, I'm Dustin Scruggs with Prosper Engineering, and I'm here to represent Prevost Cars.
All right. Adam?
All right. If y'all remember, a couple months ago, we approved the Phase 1 plan for a building addition on the Prevost. Here's Prevost site. I had to turn this up just kind of where it looked kind of like where you would think of it. I-65 here. Here's coming in the facility here. So we did the building addition. So this phase they're wanting to do now is a parking. They need more for their surface bays and the coach vehicles there. So it basically running the parking lot improvement is this area right here. So it's in that wooded area. This just kind of turns it sideways. You can see the grading. It does do a stormwater watering quantity pond with our new requirements. Landscaping, we base the landscaping on the new disturbed area. So there'll be a lot of existing landscape being preserved, but there will be some, of course, taken out where the parking lot and drive would be, but they will be putting several trees back. Staff stipulation, our engineer consultant has a few comments. One of the things they want me to make you aware of, they've requested a TDEC, Tennessee Department of Environment Conservation, a hydraulic determination to make sure one of the areas on the property kind of has a drain to make sure it's not a protected stream by TDEC's requirements. And they just want to be aware, if it comes back, this is a wet weather conveyor, then it's no problem. But if it comes back possibly a little bit more, it could change the parking lot design. So they want that to be aware. That's one of the things they want to confirm. And also, along the property, they're wanting to use like a existing stone wall they want to grade out instead of building a retaining wall. And our consultant engineer feels So like that'd be fine, but we just need the geotech to confirm the stability of it, do the proximity to the parking. But those are the only two questions. Met all my plan review comments. So it gives some options. One, approve the site plan with the listed staff stipulations I discussed. That'd be my recommendation. Two, we could deny it in a meeting if there's a reason the planning commission feels not to approve it, or three, defer the request. But open that up for any questions then.
All right, do you have anything to add to that, sir?
No, sir, I think that's a pretty thorough review. The stream determination on there, if it was a stream, it's a very small section, it's about 140 feet. Looks more like a ditch. I walked it myself. I'm not an environmental scientist, but once we do get that conclusion, if it is a stream, TDEC does allow for up to 200 feet of stream alterations, of course, permitted through TDEC, and that would be the intent as opposed to changing the parking lot layout. So we still anticipate moving forward with this design. It just depends on what level of permitting would be required at the time, so.
And altering that stream is not a problem, Adam?
Well, that's the TDEC if it would permit it, if it's determined to be a stream.
Yeah, if
Hopefully it's not, but
Okay.
yeah.
That'd be up to TDEC. All right.
That's just something we would verify before we issue any kind of land disturbance grading pit. Because they got to, due to the size of the project, they got to get a permit through TDEC also, in addition to Goodlettsville. So that's usually where, TDEC usually doesn't let it go past that. But
Yep. Yes, sir, yeah, we'll be.
they're just expensive to have to pay to underground drainage, so.
All right, I'll turn it over to the board for any questions or comments.
I'll let y'all know. They shouldn't change design.
Seeing no one want to comments, we're looking for a motion. And so I think the staff had recommended approval with stipulations. And so. All right. Mr. Barnesfeld, you made a motion to approve with stipulations. Do I have a second? Second by Mr. Parnell. Any further questions or comments? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
We are ready for item number 5. And this is for Dry Creek Cottages. And I understand that the applicant has asked us to defer for a couple of months. Is that correct?
Yes, we sent some plan review comments, and they wanted to look at some possible options, but I wanted to keep it on the agenda because we have advertised it for a public forum where people could see what the idea is. It could possibly change before we see it next month. So, but yeah, the applicant has requested deferral. We did not get any revised plans in. I'll kind of give a little background on it. If you remember in January of this year, we had a proposal to increase the density to 26 units. Right now it's been approved. And this project goes way back, like even the early 2000s, but most recently we approved 14 one-family and a 1 2-family, so 16 total dwelling units. On the front, 2.5 acres. So let me explain this is a little bit tricky request now. This is where we previously approved the 16 units. This is right on Dry Creek Road. And this highlighted property is a property a previous owner acquired, I don't know, probably 3 or 4 years ago. It's still zoned R25. It's about 1.5 acres. And looking at the project, if you remember, there was some retaining walls that were kind of cost prohibitive, and a lot of the residents didn't like them either. So they're trying to look at ways to maintain the existing density. I think they realized we're not going to approve any more density because we denied that back in January. So wanting to keep the 16 units, actually go to all single family, but they want to spread it amongst the 2 properties. So it would require a rezoning on this back section here. This is Draper Drive that goes around. A comprehensive plan, as you can see, the aqua color is like low-density residential conservation, and the light green is your high-density development. So it's right there between, at the kind of the line. As you can see also with our zoning, all this area here is high-density residential, and this is all the low-density residential. So the request would be rezoning this one tract, 1.5 acres. to, from R25 to high-density residential. Here's the previous approval. They've actually recorded the master deed, so these lots are actually recorded lots. But you see there was the 14 units and 2 units of 16. There was the retaining wall, averaged about 20 feet high. And that was the goal. They're trying to get rid of that wall, at least the height with the revised design. So here again is the design they're proposing. Of course, this was requested to be deferred. But they're requesting to do 16 one-family detached dwellings on the entire roughly 4 acres instead of all in the front there. So motion options, defer, because that is the applicant's request. Like I said, they did not submit any revised plans in. Or 2, the planning commission does have the ability to recommend denial of the request. Definitely it's no situation to be recommend approval, because the revised plans, we had some comments with the fire department, and they were looking into that. But that's our options. I feel with this, we could defer it. I'm expecting this to be back at the August meeting, or recommend denial of the request. But I just wanted for the people who did get the notices to see what the request is for. I know wrote up the item, it's like a paragraph and a half, explained it. So I'm just trying to explain to people that the goal is not to increase the density, but to spread it amongst the 2 properties, so.
Were anybody here concerned about this property, show of hands? Is that the reason y'all came tonight? Okay.
Can I bring something up? Because it brings in the EPA.
I'm sorry,
I have a concern with the properties that brings in EPA at this point.
well, this is going to be deferred for a couple of months.
Well, I understand that, but my property, I wasn't here in January. My property has it has
Oh, I'll tell you what.
spring that feeds.
I'll allow you to come to the microphone, because you came in late after the public forum. So-
I do apologize about that. I live at 519 Altaloma Road. This directly butts up between the 2 properties. There's a tree line that goes between the 2 properties they're wanting to combine. My property is actually the 3rd one in, and I have a natural spring that is underground that feeds into that tree line that goes between mine and the second house in neighbor's property, and it also feeds directly between the 2 properties they're wanting to conjoin. This natural spring does go through there, and that's why there is the tree line the way that it is, and it starts on my property. I have 3 or 4 different holes that the natural spring actually comes out of in a portion of my property, and so the EPA is going to have to get brought into this in order for any kind of construction or anything to go through that tree line.
Yes, due to the acreage of the property, it's over an acre. TDEC, they kind of administer at the local level first. They would have to permit. Yeah, there is she's right, there's a little stream that comes through there. Because
It's not a little, it starts on my property, and like I said, there's massive holes and channels on my property where this natural spring comes through, where my property goes like this down, and then you've got the natural springs, and it feeds into every one of those tree lines that goes back and cuts that property in half, because my property is actually, if you look at it, you see where there's that triangle, right there, that is my property, right there, and that is where the natural spring is, and it goes cut straight through there. And when they actually started doing the tree tear down on the first property, it started causing a pond backup in that first property. And we have actually had to go through there every year and dump bleach in there because it causes a massive mosquito problem. So they have already damaged that natural spring by tearing the tree line down the way that they have. And if they continue to go over into the next property, it will, at that point, cross over this natural spring, and it will cause issues with it, causing it to back up into my property itself. And I do have a barn right there on the corner in my property, and it'll back up right where my barn is at, and it'll flood where my barn is. I do have a stream from that natural stream that comes underneath. So if somebody wants to come out and inspect my property, they're more than welcome to. I will take them over to every one of the holes where the natural springs come out. It typically happens right after the freezing, and then when we catch a lot of rain, that prevents the entire area from flooding. And so with those streams, they come directly under my property, and I do have a partial sinkhole issue that I have to have addressed as well with my property because of these natural springs that are on my property. And so it is something that is directly going to correlate and affect if they do any kind of building, any kind of construction into that second lot that they're proposing to add into.
Okay.
My property is directly going to affect it.
All right, thank you, ma'am.
Yep, not a problem. I wasn't here for the January one. I had to deal with my husband, sorry, I had to deal with my father's passing away at the beginning of the year, and so I was actually in Illinois. Otherwise, this would have been brought up in January at the January meeting. But this will be brought up again in August as well. And, I mean, you can go in, look at pictures. I can take pictures of the springs. Like I said, I want somebody from the EPA to actually come out and inspect my property so they can see what this is going to cause and the issues this is going to cause once they do move it over into putting any properties on there, whether it is high density or low density. Just building on this property is going to, once they tear that tree line down, it is going to affect it. So
All right,
they
thank
have to take that into consideration before they do any kind of construction or anything. And so
Thank-
my property has to be inspected first.
Thank you, ma'am.
Mr. Chairman, may I, have we been asked to defer for 1 month or 2, or does it matter?
At this point, my understanding would probably be August, but it possibly could be September also, so. We would send out revised notices when we know for sure. Because what was it, about 50 of them we mailed? So we would send those back. Well, that's been our deal here recently. If we get one deferred, we send it out again. So. I would say, like we just talked about on the Prevost, TDEC will have to do a determination. But yeah, that stream goes down, goes around, and then eventually gets to Dry Creek. So.
I mean, I guess, would there be opposition from staff to defer to September and just let that be that? Or is that, do we,
I mean,
Have-
I'm just to find the reason to defer it to September if that's the.
Does the moratorium affect this at all?
No, because they're not really increasing density. They're keeping the 16 units they got, just spreading it over 2 properties.
So it's not going to 26?
No, 16 now, the goal, really what this request boils down to, of course, the revised design is spreading the units onto this back lot too.
But crossing into that back lot is going to cause an issue with my property because of the natural spring.
Yeah, okay.
But yeah, if y'all choose to defer it to September, that's an option for you.
well, okay, so what I'm trying to avoid is these people having to come back in August and it get deferred again, and then they're coming back and say, I'm trying to preserve that chaos for the citizens
I mean,
that
that's
are
with the board,
of interest.
because we have people, I mean, we can just tell them, we'll have to be set up for the September meeting. If that's what you want, I just tell them that's what it'll be, so.
If you want to put that in the motion, you can.
Let me get the date of what that'll be.
It has to be real quick, sir. We're fixing to defer this for a couple of months.
That's what I say, is that a guarantee, since that's what
I'm sorry, I can't hear you. We
September
generally
8th.
don't do this after the
September 8th.
citizen comments.
I thought you asked if there were citizen comments about the first item. I didn't know that you were
Okay,
asking
I
for all of
understand.
them. I'm sorry, my name's Eric Meacham, I live at 127 Draper Drive. So the property in question was originally owned by the same owners that own my house now. The only question I've got right now is it guaranteed that it's going to be deferred because that's what the developer has requested? Or is there a likelihood that you could vote to deny it now if you heard from all of us that live in the surrounding areas? I do live in a property that abuts that property.
We're not going to open this up to a lot of comments. It's going to be deferred, okay?
Okay.
It's probably going to be deferred for at least a couple of months.
Okay.
At what point do we all have, all of us that are surrounding this, at what point do we all have the right to voice it? Because at this point, you're cutting only, you took mine, you're cutting him off with his,
I allowed you as a courtesy to, ma'am, ma'am, I allowed you as a courtesy to speak. We had a public forum for this particular, for these comments.
We understand, Mr.
It is
True,
going to
but
be- it
your
is
your
going to
question
be
was,
the-
your
sir-
question was misunderstood by me and by everyone else here. We did not, we didn't know that you were asking for questions about everything on the agenda at that point. We thought you were asking only for comments, or I did at least.
Okay, I
Only for
understand.
comments on that first
All right,
topic.
let me explain something, please. I think the best thing to do is to hold your comments until it comes back up, if it comes back up, okay? It's going to be deferred for at least 1 or 2 months. We're fixing to vote on that, at which time you'll be notified, and you can come and you can bring your neighbors, and you'll each have 3 minutes to make your comments, okay? If you make your comments now, we're gonna forget about them in 2 months, okay? Adam is very aware of what's going on.
That's fair, that's fair.
And so I would prefer to do that. And you are more than welcome to come when it comes back on the agenda in a couple of months, if it comes in a couple of months, and speak your piece.
That's fair. Will we get notified? Because I didn't get notification
It'll
that
be in
this
the
was going to be
paper.
on tonight.
It'll be in the, how will they be notified?
We sent letter, how many, we sent 51 letters, we put the signs out.
I didn't get any notification of this. I got notified of the one in January, but not this one. So I want to make sure that we're getting notification for the next one. That's,
Yeah, we will,
Notified me as well this morning.
okay.
We sent-
Okay.
Why don't you, I tell you, my suggestion is take a piece of paper, write your names and addresses, and we'll give it to Adam and.
Sure.
and-
Yeah, any
And maybe we
property
can
in
make sure
500
that
feet we
you're
sent.
notified.
this meeting meets the first Monday of each month?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So we can check the agenda
Yes, sir.
just in case.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Well, the first meeting of the month in September, it will not be the first meeting, because that will be Labor Day. So I'm gonna just go ahead and put that on the table now, that will not be that night. Mr. Chairman, since there seems to be a lot of sprawling issues at the moment, my recommendation in conferring with Adam would be to, this board consider deferring it for 3 months so that the owners can get everything in line and these folks know when to come back and speak.
I think that's a good idea. Let me ask one question. I can't speak over y'all, okay? Let me gather my thoughts. When or if or how will some type of inspection be held? Will that be before the, if he comes back in October, okay? Would he have to have the inspection before that, or is that done after that? Is that one of the stipulations, if we vote to approve it, he'd have to have this inspection? How will that work?
But, you know, what this request is basically a rezoning and a revised drawing. Of course, that would have to be done before any kind of, if this gets approved, not by this board also, but the city commission. And the next phase would be doing the final construction plans, which they were at that stage before, and this is kind of stopped. So that's when we would do, you know, the site design. We can contact, it'd be TDEC, not EPA. TDEC is the direct connection to that. They'll have to do a hydraulic determination, like we was talking about on Prevost, and that really determines, that determines how much the big buffers would be and things like that. I'm going to tell them it'd probably be worthwhile for them to go ahead and do that, because if TDEC go ahead and determines it, you know, it will affect those lots around it, so.
Okay, to address your concerns, Adam has just said he's going to recommend to this property owner that he go ahead and have this inspected. Is that correct?
It'd be request TDEC to do a determination, they call it hydraulic determination
Okay.
on that stream area.
We're probably going to, the city manager and all, and I'll leave it up to the board, we're probably going to request this to be deferred for at least 3 months, 2 or 3 months anyway. We'll wait on the vote here. We will try our best to make sure everybody's notified, okay? And and if there's a flaw in the system, we'll address that as well. But my recommendation would be to check the website, to write your names and addresses down and hand it in to Adam to where he can make sure that you have a letter. Does that satisfy everybody?
Is signing in that book enough to get our?
Yeah, that'll work. We can keep
That,
copies of
that will work. That will work. And we'll try our best to make sure y'all are notified, and I don't know why you weren't notified before. So now I'm going to address the board and ask for a motion to defer. That'd be up to, the city manager has suggested 3 months would be, which would be the
October 6th.
October meeting
6th?
or longer.
And I'm inclined, if the city manager has made that request, I was willing to do it to 2 months, but if he feels like 3 months is needed to get the answers, to be able to make intelligent decisions on this board, then I move that we defer to the October Planning and Zoning meeting.
Well, and if we're looking for determinations between now and then, I'd feel more comfortable with 3 months than 2.
Okay, that would be 3 months. October meeting would be 3 months, is that correct? All right, we have a motion. We have a second by Mr. Barnesfield. Any other comments? And so this deferral motion would be, and would be three months or longer, is that correct? It has to be October?
Now, they could, I guess, choose to go further with it.
Okay. The motion is second is for deferral for 3 months to the October meeting. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? It is deferred. Thank you for coming out, and thank you for your patience.
There's a tree that fell on my barn that's actually on that property, and I need to know who it is, so that way I can get that taken care of.
Put down your name and contact on there, I'll get.
Okay. We are now ready for item number 6. I'll turn this over to Adam.
All right, if you'll remember, last month, we had requests for our interchange overlay districts and amendments. And so this meeting tonight, these amendments are basically, the goal is to vote on them to make a recommendation to our city commission. Proposed amendments, basically, as we talked about, there was 2 different requests going at once, so I wanted to break it down. I know it was confusing when I wrote it up, but basically what it is, there's 5 sections proposed by 2 different applicants to be included in the overlay going forward. The first one was convention centers and event centers. If you remember, we talked about the former Impact Church property. They want to convert it over to a convention centers, event center type deal. So that would be allowed in the regular overlay. We would include that use. Number 2, also would be general retail trade. We would include that in the use, in the overlay. Number 3, section 3 would be personal services with the exception of mini warehouse conditional use. Professional services, or personal services, that's going to be your salons, things of that nature. Number 4, this one's a little different. It'd be adding convenience commercial, both in the regular overlay, then the revised one we did for exit 98. Convenience commercial would be small, like pharmacies, small retail type facilities, but it would exclude car washes. And number 5, the applicant requests this be on here, express auto, like passenger vehicle lubricating services, like a oil change facility. So that's the request to add the 5 sections. The planning commission could choose to do 2 of them, none of them, or all 5 of them if they want. Based on the planning commission's discussion last month, I feel like my recommendation would be to recommend the city commission items 1 through 4. I feel like the planning commission kind of split on the express automobile oil lube. So going off my interpretation of the meeting last month, I'd recommend the 1 through 4. That'd be including general retail, personal services, the convention center, event centers, and the convenience commercial. Those uses all would be generally sales tax produced generating property. The event center would be a little different. That's more about tourism, trying to tie in with the interchange overlay. So the planning commission could do that. Like I said, if you want to do all items 1 through 5, one of them, none of them, but that would be what this board can do. So either make a motion to recommend approval of certain sections or denial to the city commission.
Are there any properties in this overlay that would support a convention center
A handful of them, yeah, are they large enough too. Depends on the size of the convention center. Definitely the Impact Church. I mean, it's probably one of the biggest properties. The Impact Church property off Rivergate would be one of the biggest. Yes, that's kind of the goal there with that. Maybe some, not really, because there's not a lot of big properties left. Maybe up on Rivergate Parkway North, the one where we approved the hotel, maybe if something, a different use goes in it, possibly, but yeah, it'd be limited.
Okay. Any comments from the board, suggestions? Were you here for this item, sir?
Yes, sir. I was going to speak about it if I had a job.
In what capacity?
We had talked to you guys last.
Okay, please speak in the microphone.
The last commission meeting that we had talked to you about 912 Conference Drive and the issues of what we're running into there and the reason that we were requested a financial institution at that time and since then have worked with Adam and them to hopefully expand our uses to the automotive. And so I just wanted to address some of that and kind of share with you what we've run into since the last meeting, if that was an opportunity.
Okay.
But if it's not allowed to speak now, I'm happy to.
Well, we're already gone off topic, so go ahead and go.
I appreciate it. And again, I appreciate last meeting to be able to share why we really needed and was focused on the financial services uses that we had to redevelop the property. And just wanted to go over some of since then we've done a lot of work when we realized that really all we had was a restaurant use at the time and a drive-through restaurant use. And so we spent a lot of time in the last month reaching out to those other restaurant uses that we had initially that we had hoped to be able to redevelop the property for, and then every other retailer that we know of that's in Middle Tennessee that's growing right now, some of them that we've worked with in the past and some of them that we just know that they're not in Goodlettsville and have reached out to them and their representatives to try to get them interested in this parcel. And part of what we had shared with you last time is the issues that we have because of the size of the site. It's really a constraining on this site. When they gave up part of the parcel, the Henderson family gave up part of the parcel to expand Long Hollow Pike. It cut the parcel down to 0.8 acres. And today for restaurant uses, that just is real hard to make work unless you're doing a small coffee shop. And even the coffee shops today are requiring that they have about 18 to 20 car stack in their drive-through. I think it was Saturday morning, I went by the 7 Brew out there and was amazed. I had to wait for them to get out of the way in Long Hollow Pike as they were backed out to Long Hollow Pike, and that's what most of those users are experiencing today just because they're getting so much use, but also since COVID, that's just a real focus for them is to be able to add the pickup window like a Chipotle or a drive-through like a Starbucks. And because of that stack and everything, it's been real hard to even make a lot of the quick service restaurants and the fast casual restaurants that I know the city wants layout on that site. And we have done probably 6 or 7 different layouts for restaurant users that expressed interest that we've reached out to. And I've got David Abbey, I'm a civil engineer here tonight, just to kind of go over the issues that he had in trying to get those users to site plan on that 0.8 acres. And most of them just don't work. And I also have David to be here to answer any questions that y'all have to substantiate what I'm sharing with you on that. And Dave, you kind of want to go through that part of it.
So you'll notice in here, we've got 3 definitely the most recent ones that we've worked on, Whataburger, Slim Chickens and Freddy's Burgers. And so, as you can see, kind of all these guys, just based on what they need, based on their drive-through orientations, and even the way some of their buildings set up, just the, compact site that we have today just doesn't allow for pretty much all of these kind of guys to go in. Again, it would probably take a pretty small, more like a mom and pop kind of place or somebody to go in that doesn't really need the full drive-throughs the way that all the current guys operate these days.
Any questions or comments from the board? That's kind of going through my mind too. We're not talking about just this property. We're talking about all property in the interstate overlay. And
That's the portion in the overlay, that's correct, yeah.
so we're talking about changing, in this item right here, we're talking about changing the whole overlay system.
Mr. Chairman, and to the gentleman, we spoke after the meeting last month too, and I spoke up and shared that I still stand against section number 5 being in this overlay. So I just want to make that public.
How do you feel about 1 through 4 in this particular property? And how do you feel about 1 through 4 throughout the city of Goodlettsville in this overlay system?
I definitely like number 1. I think that's a need that the city has shown, and even with the tourism board has shown a concern of having a convention center of that size, which we do not have. So I think that'd be great. General retail, obviously it brings in sales revenue to the city. I don't know if we have an option of what different retail spots that offers. Mr. Russell, when we talk about retail, would that be a variety, or is there stipulations on what kind of retail, or?
Do you have the definition of retail? I guess it would include anything from
It's in the packet, I don't have it on the overhead.
convenience store to clothing store to.
Yeah, it's in the packet on back, a couple pages in. There's like 20, 30 items.
Which page is that? Page 13 identifies it, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very broad, but. I think to the value of the property, it's probably gonna be, if it is retail, it's gonna be something that's, a company that can support that.
Yeah, and that's something that me and the applicant talk about, that's something that you and I talked about too, just bringing you into the discussion is even for section number 3, that's gonna, Mr. Chairman, that's probably gonna be somewhat of a corporation that comes in that can afford rent, like even on his particular spot.
And that's the real struggle that we have on this parcel, is that you can't, like you had mentioned as far as your salon, it's just, we can't find a small retailer that can afford to support the value that the Hendersons have for this property. It really takes one of these brands that we've discussed tonight to be able to support the value that they deserve on the property. And so that's where we've started this conversation about additional uses to hopefully at least get the retail services and the automotive part of it to be able to expand those possible uses there. And we're fighting several other things. I'd love to share it with you, but I don't want to hold y'all up either and take too much of your time. But it's just, we've got a situation right now where the Hendersons have income coming in. They have a tenant that's paying their taxes. They've boarded the building up, and unless I can find a user or they can find a user that can support it, then they're probably going to sit there for another 8 years and just get the income and get the taxes paid for them. And So it's a situation where for the city's sake and for my sake and for the Henderson's sake, we just really need some help on opening up the possible uses there to be able to get it redeveloped. I know I could do a bank right now. I know you don't want that, and I understand all the reasoning on that, but I really need the general retail and the automotive services at least. And I did find one thing that I wanted to bring up tonight for discussion for y'all's thoughts on it, but as I was looking back on the services that are allowed today, I discounted fuel and service stations just because I knew we couldn't fit the typical convenience market. But I did want to ask the Planning Commission, would automotive fall under service stations? Because I looked it up on definition. I just Googled definition of service station, and looking at that, it seemed to fit that use as far as service stations. And I want to see if you guys would consider that. But it says a service station is a place that sells things for vehicles, such as gas, oil, and spare parts. Service stations often sell food, drinks, and other products. So I just wondered if y'all would consider, say, an oil change that we talked about in the last meeting to be considered under that service station identification of what's currently zoned for. And it may be we need to defer our certain parcel, because I know you've got a bigger picture here and other parcels and things like the gentleman last month about the convention centers, and to be able to sit down on a better time to just go through these site plans and specific users that I've had conversations with that have looked at it and turned me down for mainly the reason because of the size, but also just because of the available properties that are on Long Hollow Pike, and just fighting the fact that most of those users, if there's an option to go to one of the vacant restaurants on Long Hollow Pike, then I'm going to be sitting there waiting for those to get filled up to be able to do something on this parcel there at 912 Conference Drive. So just sharing, I wanted to follow up and share, what we've actually run into as we've worked hard over the last month to go through those specific conversations and users as possible ways to redevelop the property. And I also wanted to share with you that in the last month, we've had conversations with Inspire Brands, and we've worked out the possibility of a termination of their lease, so we can get that 8-year lease out of the way. But we can't afford to do that, and the Henderson family can't afford to do that unless we find another user to be able to redevelop the property for. So those are all the things I just wanted to share with you since the last meeting, and appreciate your time again, and happy to answer any questions that y'all.
Adam, I got a question for you. On this particular property where the Arby's was, and it's in this overlay, you could not single that piece of property out and say, you can only on this property could you put a lubricating business. Is that correct?
I guess the key at that point would be taking it out of the overlay. Unfortunately, the property on the other side of it in the overlay too, Cabuto's, so it'd be, I think that'd be kind of like a spot zoning kind of.
I was thinking so too.
Yeah.
So this is kind of like our decision is going to affect all of it, just not this one particular parcel.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
In our zoning ordinance, Mr. Seeley's question, our zoning ordinance, not saying that there's not others that are different. Auto servicing, not like a gasoline service station, but auto servicing, that talks about sale and installation of tires, batteries, and lubricating services. So that's a different classification in our zoning ordinance. So I don't really think it would fall under the current auto, what's the intention in the overlay, the way the 2013 ordinance was written. But that was a question he had. But just based on our classification of our zoning, I think it would fall under a different section. So, but still, I think they're asking to include it to make sure. So, when we did the Exit 98 overlay, that was recommended to the City Commission, but they took the Auto Express Loop place out when it was for 98. So, when they voted on it. So my understanding that they wasn't comfortable with it being in the overlay. But it could be a different request, with this being multiple pieces, if y'all feel, make a recommendation based on that, it might be something they could review again, so. But there is, we go to a lot of these, you go to these shows, economic development, and the Express Loop places are very popular. Just because they're one of the businesses that are expanding, in addition to restaurants and stuff, but.
I guess I'd like to ask the board, what's the, and I don't know the answer myself personally, I hadn't figured this out. What's the downside of having a lubricating Jiffy Lube type place in an overlay?
We have one over there behind Shell off, it's non-conforming, but there was one there. I mean, that'd be a question, is that, I feel like that use is incompatible there.
Is it not in the overlay?
It is, but the overlay was done in 2013, so it was there prior to.
Way before that.
Mr. Chairman, just talking here, so I'll just throw this out here, and hopefully I won't talk ahead of myself, but Mr. Sealer, so are you saying pretty much the best chance that you have of doing anything new with that property is one of these quick lube places?
It's a good option, just because, and I've had a conversation, a friend of mine represents the one that I would like to put there. They do a nice building, they're a great operator, huge company, and his actual comment back was, yes, I think they would consider Goodlettsville, but it's going to be real hard without visibility to Long Hollow Pike, which is another one of those things I won't bore you with that I'm fighting. You know, you've got 22,000 cars on Long Hollow Pike, you have 16 on Conference Drive, so it's just all those things that are issues and fighting me to redevelop this parcel. And I just know it's not a good thing to sit there for 8 more years and the Henderson family collect rent for all of us or any of us. And so just trying to get some help from the city. And I know we talked about last time is that if it sits there vacant and we've done our due diligence and we've worked hard to try to find a restaurant or something like that that'll go there, or a retailer, assuming that gets approved as a use, then I could come back and maybe we could talk about a bank at that time if that's still a possibility. But unfortunately, being under contract on a piece of property doesn't give me a lot of time, but that's something that maybe the Henderson family could do at some point. But so just trying to share and be honest about the situation and what we've fought. And in this last 30 days, we've spent a lot of time and David's time just doing site plans. But Whataburger should be a great user to do a second unit in Goodlettsville. They're growing right now, and I don't know how they're doing in Rivergate. So you fight that if somebody's in Rivergate doing a second store here in Goodlettsville. And I can share with you one of the coffee users that I hoped would be a possibility that could fit on the site. They have a store in Rivergate, it's doing lackluster volume, and so they won't consider Goodlettsville right now. So it's all those things that aren't y'all's problem, but it is a problem for somebody like myself or the Hendersons to justify redeveloping that property versus letting it sit there. Because they've got an income situation and they've got a tenant that pays their taxes and maintenance and all of that. But I hate to see any building or any parcel in a good city like Goodlettsville just sitting there, because it really does. And I will share with you one of the restaurants that we had, and I've asked the agents that represent these tenants too to give me emails so y'all aren't just taking what I'm saying, that I can substantiate it for you. The one restaurant that I really hoped would be a user on this that will convert buildings and make the economics better, they had a site ride this past month, and they came through there, and their operations people got negative on it, and so for that reason, they've kind of gotten negative on the whole deal, because they did their site ride, and they go down Goodlettsville and they see, you know, the Captain D's didn't work, you've got the Shoney's sitting there vacant, and the KFC's not doing well. I've had knowledge of several contracts on that piece of property to redevelop that one, and I know it has some issues because of floodplain and this and that, but when they drive through a market like that and they see these vacant buildings, right or wrong, they have the feeling that this isn't a good market. And I experienced that on a really good user that I'd hoped would be the restaurant that I could make work. And so just sharing all that with you, and I'm happy to back it all up and bring anything to any meeting and sit down and where David can show you better what we're fighting on the making these users fit on this parcel. But just trying to get some help to get it redeveloped, and if I can't, I'll just have to get out of the way and let the Hendersons do what they need to do
Okay, thank you.
as owners. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments from the board?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, ma'am.
I have a question, not about that specific piece of property. I wanted to ask Adam, if I may, about Amendment Section 1 on convention centers and event centers.
Mm-hmm.
What restrictions might there be to the kinds of organizations, groups, individuals who might want to bring an event or a convention in there that might not represent what we would hope Goodlettsville would represent? What are our restrictions on that? Legal restrictions, terms, what would guide that? If there were certain things that people wanted to do there or show there or whatever that are not what we would ordinarily hope to show in a family-oriented community like Goodlettsville.
Well, I know we have adult-oriented business regulations. They would not be permitted in that district. I'm trying to think what other kind of uses, I don't know how we could regulate who their tenants would be. I mean, not a tenant, but who rents it out if it's not the old adult-oriented business or some kind of scene kind of deal. I don't know. We do have that, I guess, but Russell, what do you think?
We've just spent the last meeting going over an amendment on that issue of the adult-oriented businesses, that event center seems to lend itself to that use sometimes, and then it's very difficult to regulate. We have it prohibited, but again, it's just it's a city ordinance. I mean, it's $50 fine. And then how do you really police it? So, my thought is when I think of an event center or convention center, I'm thinking about a lot of space. I'm trying to figure out where, anywhere down there other than the old Kmart, now Dollar General building, unless one of the hoteliers would allow some sort of sublease or something, would we even have a space for something like that to even function? I know that Dean's back in the back, and he's looked at the old theater and the church over there under the bypass, which is also an overlay, but it's a much more significantly sized building than I think anything that's ever going to go on one of these lots down here. Is my thought, just from a footprint standpoint. I mean, you're not going to put a convention center on the Shoney's lot. And I can't imagine one being on the Arby's lot. It ain't got enough parking spaces for a restaurant, it ain't got enough for a convention center.
My concern is primarily, topically, what people might want to bring in.
Yeah, and when they come in, and we've had them come in, they say, we want to put in an event center there, and we allow that, and they say what they're going to do. They're going to do weddings, they're going to do reunions, they're going to be, various other groups that get together. But it's hard to regulate, it's hard to regulate everything. We do have under our adult-oriented business ordinance, what we call the adult encounter clubs, or what's the other term we use in there? Adam, what's the other term that we actually used? Again, it's pretty broad-based from a constitutional level. Adult-oriented business and or what do we call it?
That's what our ordinance defines it as.
Adult encounter
Center, yeah.
center.
So I think we could regulate that, but I don't know other tenants that come in there.
But they could use it for a church. They could do church service there. They could do.
What if someone travels the country selling, marketing adult-oriented books, items that they set up displays for some period of time? They lease it for 2 weeks, whatever. Is what we have going to speak to that if we had an event center that was rentable, leasable?
Yeah, that's not considered an adult-oriented business because there's no, event, there's no performance. type of, that's where the adult-oriented business are oriented. I mean, some of that nature, if that was the use, I would sure it'd be age restricted, something of that nature. But no, I don't think we'd have kind of books they sell. I don't know if we would have anything to regulate that. Because we would never know who their tenants are. I mean, it's not like they had to get a permit, to lease out a space, event center space.
The 615 event center,
Mm-hmm.
is it under the underlay and what, how did?
Now, that property was taken out of the overlay because it was at the edge of the overlay, and the board took it out. But yeah, they were the same deal, and that was what we felt like was the best deal there, due its proximity to the interstate, how far off, kind of odd location it is.
If we're looking at like the movie theater for the convention, could we carve it out?
And it's kind of unique, the church they remodeled, and it stops under 386 right now. So the board would have the ability to, those are big properties. It's not just this one, it's the one behind it too, where there's a store now, the Green Chili restaurant. It's a sizable piece of property. Those two are the edge of the overlay. So the board could decide to take those out because it's on a perimeter, but.
So it would be a takeout instead of draining it everywhere type deal, like in this.
Yes, Mr. Barfield, but I think if we took this property out, we'd also have to probably take out the Cabuto property. Because you couldn't,
No, I'm talking about this is the movie theater.
oh, the one under 386 or the one across from Cantrell's Old Market?
One at 386.
Okay. Because we did take the one out across from Cantrell's Market.
We removed that
because
from the
it-
property because it was the perimeter edge. Yeah,
Yeah.
it hit just that one track on that side, so.
We
And the
also-
reason we did that-
We also took it out because that property couldn't,
Exactly.
it couldn't support any type of,
Other than a restaurant, that was it,
Yeah.
yeah. It's another size of it.
okay. Let's, I guess we need to look for a motion from someone. We have 5 options. There's been some discussion on the Express Automotive. Me personally, I don't have a problem with that. In any part of this overlay system. But, I'll turn this over to the board for a motion. Yeah, go ahead. I'm going to get in trouble if I keep on letting people.
I apologize.
speak.
I should have come a little earlier. And just to address Ms. Wheeler's concerns, I think you got a valid concern. The reasoning for we already took over the Impact Church last week on the 27th. Our goal is to make this a professional event center, not to kind of bring nuisance or rap singles or anybody like that. So if there's any concerns of that, please do keep that. We want to keep that open. We've already had some people that wanted to do that and said that, hey, you guys want to do that, but we want to keep it professional. We were directed to Miss Summer, who actually runs 615, who has a very good background in event space, rental and stuff. So we're actually in discussions with her to run it professionally and make sure it's done correctly. So our main thing is making sure that if we do turn it into a conference center, event center space, it's not going to be a nuisance to our city. It's going to be something that's going to be of value. The minute it becomes a nuisance, I'd rather shut it down myself than have to deal with our family over here. That's the last thing I want to do. So please do forgive me if I've said anything out of line, but we do want to keep it professional. Thank you.
So I'm glad you said something.
Thank you.
Okay. Let's go on to a motion if there is one. I will, I'll give a few more, I'll give another minute for y'all to gather your thoughts. If there isn't a motion, this dies, and the motion, and this, and everything just stays the same. Is that correct? Okay, so this, I'll give y'all another minute to gather your thoughts to see if there's a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I don't want to make a motion right now, but I know our city needs a convention center, so and yeah, I guess some bad things could come. I suppose that's possible, but not personally too concerned about that. So I'm okay with that change, but honestly, the rest of it, if we did any of the rest of it, I don't even know why we would have an interchange overlay at that point. It'd just remove the entire category and call it a day. I mean, there's no, the entire point in 2013 was to limit the uses next to our interchanges. That was the purpose of the thing. If we're not gonna do that, then I don't know why we have it. So
If I
but
remember.
I don't want to make I don't want to control the motion that this board has to. Now, if nobody else is going to make a motion, then I will do that. But
Yeah.
I have a feeling I'm the only one that feels the way I feel.
If I remember correctly, 13 years ago when we did this overlay, one of the deciding factors was we were getting inundated with financial institutions, with loan type of, quick loan type things. And if I remember correctly, that was one of the reasons for this overlay in the first place.
So the reality is, in the commercial development space, stuff just cycles in and out. And so a couple years ago, car washes were the thing. You could not go to a commercial real estate meeting and not have 1 million people wanting to build a car wash. A few years before that, it was storage units. It's always something. Always something's on fire and wants everything they can grab up. And then 5 years later, there's too many of them and they go bankrupt and it's garbage again. And it's like, okay, maybe the oil change thing is the strong thing right now. Maybe that's true. But in the end, nobody's getting off the interstate at exit 97 to get their oil changed. That's not why we're trying to provide them with services that will get people that don't live here to come off the interstate and spend money in Goodlettsville. That's the point. And I just don't see somebody traveling from Kentucky to Alabama stopping in Goodlettsville to get an oil change. I just don't see it. Now, the banks, I'd probably be more open to a bank, but I don't see people stopping necessarily to get a loan in the middle of their trip either. So I just don't, I'm not seeing it. That doesn't mean I'm right, but I don't see it. So I am where I'm at with it, and I'm not trying to influence anybody. I'm honestly, I just wanted to sit over here and stay quiet and let y'all make whatever motion you're going to make, but that nobody made one, I don't know what to do with that. I don't want us to leave tonight and not have the convention center as an option for the old movie theater. I think that's a benefit to our city. So I don't want to do nothing, because nothing then keeps that from happening.
Well, if we do nothing on that, can Dean come and can we carve, how would we go about that the right way?
That's an option. That'd be an option, but it would affect the two tracks there, the two properties. Mr. Patel's and their property, and then Green Chili behind it. I don't know how we could leave the Green Chili one in it. And I can talk to the owner, he might not care to be in it either, because his use is non-conforming now. The store part, the restaurant would be fine, but. Yeah, it's non-conforming. It's been a retail use for a long time. It's been a store, is that Worms Way even before then, so it's been retail for a while.
If he didn't want to be included, could we just do the movie theater, or do we have to?
Yeah, we had to do both of them.
Okay.
Because movie theaters, it'd leave a gap, basically.
But it would, to me, if you were, that's the lesser of the evils, at least we've got a small tract of land versus all the overlay.
That's definitely an option for you guys, so. I'd probably want to talk to them before, all of a sudden it's affecting their property, they're not part of the request. I'd want to, if y'all want to go that route instead, we'd need to defer, I could talk to the owner, the Green Chili's, the store owner there.
So what would be the pro or cons by doing that?
Well, it sounds like the goal would be to do that,
To allow the event center,
but then not to leave the overlay
right,
like it is, like the uses.
but in order to do that, we would have to include.
I would think so, yeah. Sorry, I don't have the aerial pulled up. I did last time, but I didn't put it on this one that showed it. But yeah, it would be two properties. This spot, 386, the Regeneration Church, it's not in it, so overlay.
I think it's good of you to want to talk to somebody if you're going to make a change, but really you're giving them more latitude to do more of what they might want to do. You're not taking anything away from them, you're giving them additional, so I can't, I mean, I understand, but I don't know that they would be upset that
Oh,
we
yeah. You're right.
took them out of the overlay. And maybe that's, I guess if we're gonna take the, for lack of a Arby's building, I don't know the address, if we're gonna take that out, okay, take the Caboodle out too. I don't know why we wouldn't, if we've got to take the Caboodle out to make the Arby's building work, okay. I mean, I don't know, I don't want to do it, but if that's where this board is, I mean, I don't, nobody whoever owns Caboodle isn't going to be upset about that.
Well, the other option,
Oh, okay.
the other option would be to go ahead and allow these 5 items or 4 items, whatever, into this overlay.
Or just get rid of the overlay altogether.
Well, maybe, but I would think that taking out a portion, 1 or 2 of them out, or leave them all in, that would still give some leeway on. I'm looking for something that's convenient for Goodlettsville, something that Goodlettsville needs, and something that's going to generate, sales and sales tax and revenue and that sort of thing. And so I think all those items, might fall into that category myself, including the lubricating system, the Jiffy Lube type thing. I don't want to see a diesel truck repair place over there on Arby's, but if it's a Jiffy Lube, that didn't bother me. That's just my personal opinion. But I see your point about just taking the overlay system out altogether, but this right here would be the first step, and that's something we can decide later on down the road, just to do away with it if that's what we wanted to do.
Mr. Chairman, I wasn't here in 2013, so I can't speak on what happened, but there was a reason why there wasn't overlay put in place. Like you spoke, because of the check cashing or financial
Well, that was
institution, whatever.
that's just one of the.
Yeah, right,
one of the
but-
items.
as is, but at the same time, and I spoke to Mr. Seeley about this last month, that we ran into the same thing as far as with the Shoney's property, and now we're running into it with this particular property on Conference. We want to change something to allow something to go into it, which down the road we may regret. So I don't know where the board stands, and I'm not comfortable with all these different options myself, and kind of heard some things from the community also. I do know that the event center is something that's been sought after. It's something that we're missing. Hotels, revenue that can bring money to restaurants. So, I mean, if nobody's gonna make a motion, I'll make a motion to except section 1. And I know that don't help with the Arby's building, and I apologize, but I don't think we're ready for a bank there on that property either. I think that's been pretty boisterous about that. But you know, we took the oil changing out of the overlay on the Louisville Highway exit. And if we didn't put it there, I don't know why we would put it into this one. So, that's mine.
I do think we need to be consistent. So if you want to make a motion, so you made a motion, so your motion is to just accept number 1. Okay?
And I'll add, Mr. Chairman, and to Mr. Parnell's comments, and maybe this is a question for Mr. Ellis or to Adam, but, you know, when do we look at our overlays in the future, or is that at any time they can be looked at? Or is that something that we may need to come back around down the road to look at? I'm just asking out of...
I mean, honestly, right now is the time that you look at it, because we're addressing our entire comprehensive land use plan, which would drive what that zoning of those locations would be. So, I mean, I would say from now until whatever is adopted at the end of this year is the time for that to be reviewed. Adam, can you put the 5 things back up there? I think it was 5.
Mr. True, one of your comments was you didn't want to see a vehicle, like a semi-truck. So that's where I know in section 5, it is passenger vehicles that would
Right.
limit it out.
Yeah, I wasn't saying you didn't put out, that's just something I would not want to see.
That's what I was concerned about too. So.
Let me just direct the board to all the definitions that go under these categories. For instance, general retail trade has 20, wait a minute, XLVI is, no,
About a quarter of them are obsolete uses.
40, 46, I think. "46 various categories."
Right now, the motion is just for item number 1.
Right, I was saying, if any others, so,
We're just pointing out, in case someone wanted to amend the motion, what those definitions would be. Because right now, there's not a second, I guess we shouldn't even be talking about it, so.
Okay. We have a motion to allow section 1 into the overlay. Do we have a second?
I'll second it, just, we do a vote and see where people are at.
We have a motion, we have a second. Any discussion?
Billy, use your mic.
Yeah. Would be, is it better to do it in the whole overlay again, or is it better to cut just the movie theater and the strip center right next to it out?
You asking me or Adam?
You?
What happens if next month, same different situation comes up and somebody else is wanting to be cut out? I mean, and I don't know if that's what the answer is. I think an overlay was put in for a reason. And now I know we're talking about it, like Mr. Ellis talks about it, the comprehensive plan, but I think we need to set a standard And I don't think we can always pick and choose, if that's the way to say it, about what to include.
To me, it would be very difficult to take out something that is 15 feet from the interchange. I see the principle in what you're talking about, but it's still the interchange.
Okay.
Billy, are you concerned about somebody trying to put an event center somewhere else? I mean, I don't know, Adam,
But to counter that, there's not a lot of land left
Right.
to
it's gonna
do
be
such a
hard-
thing, so I'm
it's gonna
kind
be
of,
hard to find that.
yeah.
yeah, and at some point it's, once you have enough, right now there's a lack. Once the market's kind of saturated, I don't know that you're gonna have too much demand beyond that. I don't think.
Okay. We have a motion, we have a second, we've had some discussion. Any more discussion? All those in favor of the motion to allow Section 1 into the overlay, say aye. Aye. Opposed? No for Ms. Wheeler. Motion carries. I would like to make a suggestion while we're on this topic, that we schedule a continuing education on the overlay. We probably need to have some continuing education anyway, and we could, that could be one of the topics to discuss. And I guess pick one of these months that should be low and slow, and put it in there for discussion
Okay.
on that.
All right. Because I'll talk about it in a few minutes on the comprehensive plan, we're looking at some different overlays, so that'd be new, so yeah.
Okay. Very good. All right. We're now ready for discussion items.
All right, request 601 Caldwell, I don't know if I see owner here. He must've got his dates, so we'll just hold off on this. The owner's got some different ideas on this property that want to get your all's take on it. I don't really want to speak for him. I haven't heard
Okay.
anything of you. Okay. So next we'll move on. So we'll just push this off. I'll confirm with him before I put it back on the agenda, but he was attempting to contact some of the people in the residence area. I think he's trying to survey them and their thoughts on it too. So we'll get into it. Next thing, the residential planning unit development, high-density zoning district, zoning ordinance amendments. You know, we're under the one-year moratorium for high-density, and also it's the comprehensive plan we want to just look at, and then our ordinance requirements. We've talked about these for a couple months, and kind of just keep whittling down. So this is kind of the current, suggestions. The goal, we're in no hurry on these. The goal is to have this done by December. So I just kind of want to keep pushing this along and, kind of keep discussing any changes before we make the formal request for it. The goal with these amendments is basically to find what has been the expectations, discussions of the Planning Commission. These more residential projects come up, what we were expecting, and really just to find that up front, that way people know before they purchase property or look at purchasing property, contracts or anything of that nature, what our expectations are. So we'll go through these right quick. Number one, we have the two-family detached dwelling units. Those are considered duplexes, basically. We allow them currently in the ordinance, in the low-density planning unit development zoning district, and in R15. R15, you have to have a 30,000 square foot lot. I think there's some concerns, with the comprehensive plan, how we're setting it up. Is that something the city wants to have those options going forward in those zone districts? I think those are the R25s, R40, they do not allow the duplexes. We have a bunch of duplexes in R15 that a lot of them are non-conforming due to the size of the property. But that's something to think about going forward. Do we even want the option in the low-density planning unit development in the R15 districts to allow duplexes going forward? Number two, we've talked about minimum square footages on residential units. In the planning unit development, we don't have anything. We do in our base residential districts, but we don't in planning unit developments. Based on some discussion we've had, number two is our detached one family would be a minimum 2,000 square foot living space. Two-family detached, be a duplex type, be 1,500 per unit, or a detached unit, kind of like Cottage Grove, would be 1,200 square foot per unit. Number 3, all 1 and 2 family, this are in the plan new developments, remind you, would require attached 2-car garage. We do that in the R25s, R15s, but we don't do it in the plan new development. I always tell people, you come into the master plan for a plan new development, you don't have attached garages, you're probably not gonna get approved. So it's kind of, it's pretty much assumed, but it would be good to put this in here. And keep going forward. Number 4, reduce the number of front-loaded garages. Right now, we allow a third of the units in a planning development to have front-loaded garages. This would be to reduce that. I know the planning commission, we talked about long-haul property, understand the location of some of them, but really wanted a limited percentage. And also, one of the options we have for garage to not be considered a front-loaded is do a recessed front. I don't know if y'all probably seen these where the garage is way behind the front of the house. Right now, it's a minimum 10 feet. That's what was approved on Moncrief 56 project back here. But there was concerns about that, so it'd be increasing that to 25 feet, so really push that garage back behind it. And this next part, I've noticed in a lot of city ordinances that kind of regulate what you would think higher level expectations, that when you have front-loaded garages, courtyard fronts, the garage can only be a 9-foot door. They don't allow the 16-foot doors. You have to break it up. It's the look. Instead of having big doors, you have a smaller door. You can have multiple ones, but it's just the smaller door. I've seen that in a couple communities' ordinances. Number 5, we've talked about this a lot. Right now, we do 50% brick or stone in plan new developments on new houses. The other materials, typically they're like a cement fiber board, can be wood fiber, EFS, which we hardly ever have EFS, split face block. You see that sometimes in foundations. I know there's been concern that's not enough, so a possible request would be to increase that to 75% instead of 50%. Number 6, we've talked about this a lot too in mixed-use developments, what we want to see commercial. In the comprehensive plan, we're looking at doing some like commercial conservation zones. So our goal is to preserve our commercial corridors. So if a mixed use comes in, we want it to be a commercial development. We understand that there could be places that mixed use would be appropriate, but we still want that commercial component. So I really kind of kept this what we've talked about, basically a minimum 10,000 square feet with a new development, then 5,000 square feet per 5,000 square feet commercial, in addition to the 10,000 for additional 100,000 square feet of residential. So say we have a 200 or 300,000 square foot apartments, which is that's not unheard of. That would require at least 20,000 square feet of commercial required before we could consider that project. That'd be a minimum. Of course, it could be more. I know the Planning Commission, we were on Conference Drive. We saw a project, the residential. Of course, we got the moratorium kind of out there, kind of complicating it, but really it was I feel like that project didn't get approved because it didn't include enough commercial. And the goal is to kind of keep our commercial corridors commercial, but may possibly mix use in certain areas. So that'd be the current level of like kind of recommended amendments to proceed with. So just kind of get your all thoughts on them.
I was, yesterday the interstate was backed way up, and so I had to cut through, to get back to Goodlettsville, I had to cut through all the side streets, and I passed this one area over there near Lowe's on Nesbitt Lane in Madison, in a fairly new subdivision. It's hit hard by the tornadoes a couple years ago, but it's basically a vinyl siding box with a couple of windows and a door. And I thought, man, that just looks horrible. And I wonder what it's going to look like in 10, 15 years from now. It just looked shabby. But then again, I'm going to Sam's area in Rivergate. I was cutting through, different neighborhoods. And there's a neighborhood over there, and I passed by, and it's got a mixture of houses that are 75% hardy board and houses that are brick and all that. And I thought, man, this looks nice. I like, some houses just have that, they look better with that plank exterior. And so, I don't know if we don't allow that, I don't know if that's.
It's allowed as a secondary, but other,
As a secondary, but
the
this is
other
more-
50%.
This would be more that than brick.
With this amendment, yeah, I mean, it's limited no more than 25% on the building.
It'd be no more than 25%.
If we do an amendment, right now they do half the building, basically,
Yeah.
hardy board.
So, like I said, I don't personally have a problem with, you know, depending on the style of the house, you know, but, you know, I'd want some detail and that sort of thing if there's more hardy board on there. Another thing I think looks real bad, just as a personal thing, is a house that's got all this, but the backside is nothing but plank. You know, I wouldn't buy a house like that. I just, you know, I would think that, but that's just me.
But that's currently what they can do, just like in Copper Creek, to meet our requirements. They're going brick on front, 2 sides, and siding in the back. On some of them that I've seen.
Okay, some of them. Of course, that was before our current regulations, Copper Creek. Yeah, I don't, sometimes, I mean, a lot of times the builders offer all brick, of course, and people don't choose it. They'd rather not spend, you know, it could be, people have different interests in what
Yeah.
they want to.
I just know on the little dead end that's being built out now, a friend of mine built the house and it's all siding on the back, or maybe it's hardy, but it looks like siding. Let me back up from that standpoint. So this would change it to where 75, could it be to where it has to be not all the 25 in one?
I mean, that's a general design provision that you can, I mean, our commercial design centers say that too. There's provisions where the planning commission can approve more on, like reduced percentages on the other sides, but it has to offset on the front. It really just, I guess it really just depends on the look you're going for in the house. But the chain builders, you know, the national builders, it's, they all, of course, all of them offer it. It's just what people choose to purchase a lot of time. So we're not having to vote tonight. I just wanted to see if everybody kind of in line with what we're thinking. I'm trying to, I whittle it down every time based on what our discussions are to think. And I put on there, Scott, on number 5 there, that the other primary raw materials may be altered with the project master plan design based on project design. Example, out on, is it Lauren Farms, out on Long Hollow Pike and Beach area? You know, some of those homes are probably 75, 80% cement fiber board, but it's the look of the neighborhood where it ties in.
Right.
So the goal is not to, if a design comes in that knocks everybody's socks off, it's not to turn it down if we feel like it really looks incredible. So, but I always tell people, you got to wow them. If you want to come in, if you want to do something like that, you're going to have to wow people. Like, wow, that's incredible, rather than us push them to put more materials on it. I think that's the mindset coming into the proposal.
I think, I liked what Billy was saying was you know, not have one side of the house all, you know, it needs to be evenly or somewhat evenly distributed throughout all 4 sides of the home. Would be my preference. Is that what you were saying?
And you know, this would be, my goal is to have these amendments done with the comprehensive plan in December. After the comprehensive plan, there's going to be a second level, because the comprehensive plan is going to define some things. We're going to change our ordinance going forward. And this, kind of talking about overlays, one of the things we're talking about is a residential neighborhood preservation overlay. So that'd be all our existing neighborhoods in Goodlettsville. We'd limit how they can re-subdivide it, which we already kind of limit that, but really define that. And then we'd want to do limited, I would say limited, because there are some state laws we're up against here. Consistent architectural and building size. Say a house burns down, they rebuild it, or there is a lot left, they want to rebuild it in a neighborhood that's, you know, established for 60 years, to try to make consistent. I know there's some concern that, you know, your two-level house, all of a sudden a 3.5-story house gets built, because we do allow 35 feet in all our residential zone districts. Now, this would require planning commission's review of new construction on houses. I know it's something we've never redone before outside planning developments, but to go to this level, I feel, after listening to the comments I've heard from some of the board members, planning commissioners, definitely the citizens out there, they want to see more preservation of our neighborhoods. So that's something looking at doing. Also, like a rural residential zone district. I know we talked about this last month. My goal here would be to combine our R40 and ag into one district and just have a rural residential zoning district. Where we did talk about acreage requirement for subdivisions, 1 to 3 acres for new lots. I've seen where people do these, and then if they do like an open space cluster type development, you can do, the acre lot, say they average the smaller lots, but they balance out open space. You don't really see that a lot in your R15, R25, it's hard to really get it, but you have to have minimum 1 to 2 acre lots where the lots can be smaller to really get like 70, 80% of your property open space. You see it in some areas of the country, not a lot here. Larger lot widths, R40, 125-foot lot, that's not really a rural lot. So you see these in more than the 250 range. Well, the goal would be to do like a 5 acre requirement for keeping large animals, kind of consistent with what we got. Maybe look at 2 to 3 acres for smaller animals. Because if our goal is a more rural setting, I think there's going to give and take on that. And then accessory building, material consistency, I think we'd want to look at altering some of our requirements to match when people have 3 acre lots and bigger, they want to have like little small farms, having a brick barn for their, in the backyard probably, it's not as something that needs to be done, like I say, in an established neighborhood. So that's something, looking at going forward. These can be tricky because one state law does not allow residential design standards. Outside of planning development, I think there's some concern. So that's why we want to do something very limited. That if someone wanted to do a neighborhood, a lot of brick, but somebody wants to do more of a hardy look, I think we have to be careful how we word that. Then the rural residential, you're going to be areas with R40 that could feel that this is taking a value of the property to require a bigger lot. A lot of our R40 areas don't have sewer, so it'd probably be hard to get lots, 40,000 square foot of sewer, but it would be possible that there could be some challenges to that. But these are big policy changes for us to do both of these. Puts a lot more time on the planning staff, especially on that top one. Just regulating accessory buildings is a lot. So we're talking about residential construction will be even more. So I just kind of want to put that out there. There will be the phase 1 we're trying to get by December, but these long-term things we're looking at. So if we do want to talk about the overlays changes, we could do that. But I think that would follow up after the comprehensive plan. And last thing, design guidelines. This is more when we do commercial buildings. Right now we do 50% brick or stone required. We do have all different provisions for like if they do a decorative aluminum panels, we added those in there. But the goal, some planning commission discussion on some sites that came in is 50%. We're comfortable with that, or we want to see that increase to 75% on these commercial sites going forward. So I just, because I wanted to find in our ordinance what you're all expecting to come in. That way you all don't feel like you have to beg them when they come in because you feel like it's not high quality look. So.
Adam, can you go back to the mixed use, the percentages that you had there?
That one? Yeah, mixed use, basically a commercial, a mixed use where they'd have residential mixed in with it. They'd have to have a minimum 10,000 square foot commercial for all projects for us to even consider. Because like I said, we're trying to get to a point where we're conserving our commercial corridors. We want a commercial project. And then they could do 5 beyond that. For every 100,000 square feet, they'd have to have 5,000 more commercial, 100,000 square foot of residential. So as the big projects get bigger, they'd have to do more commercial beyond that initial 10,000 square feet. 10,000 square feet is a good sized commercial setting. So, but if it's 6 residential buildings, maybe the 20,000 square feet be more appropriate. But it's trying to define a minimum commercial square footage.
But does that number permit what I call a livable community? I mean, I'm not really, I know it's not gonna be what we're looking at Rivergate, but I guess the percentage of the commercial, is that large enough? Because I fear that it's just gonna be a standalone corner market, and they build that so they can build the apartments there. And I've just put it on the table for conversation.
Yeah, it'd be minimum square footage, but 10,000 square feet, depending on the size, a project under 100,000 square feet, that's a big commercial space. But yeah, and that's the thing, if they're building a big community like Rivergate, really, the goal with this will be just on our commercial corridor, for we're saying commercial can only be here. We want commercial project. So if you want to do a mixed use, if we find it appropriate, they have to include that much. But to do a real planned development, it'd be more like Rivergate with a higher density. Because outside of Rivergate, our zoning is like 15 units an acre, 7 to 15 units an acre, 15 in mixed settings. Rivergate's 40. So, I mean, it's a different, kind of said it a lot higher. Even our commercial core is 40. So, I mean, these are not really intended, I guess, for the full mixed use, what we're thinking.
So would 25% be too much?
I guess if the intent is to really push commercial, then, I mean, you might not get a lot, but maybe I don't know if this board really wants a lot more mixed use, but yes, I mean, we could do as a basic percentage also, so.
So with that, I mean, basically, we're looking at the Conference Drive property.
That or maybe Dickerson Road South.
So I would be in favor of, if, any kind of commercial that we're going to allow residential, it'd be 20 or 25% to even think about it, but that's me.
In that percentage, you're looking at so you're looking at 2 levels probably of commercial.
So-
Definitely, I could see the ground floor, but that could be 25%, depending on how many stories it is and the square footage of it. And
Ground floor would be the commercial, and then the residential on top, or back on.
The apartment complex that this board approved that is right before the train bridge on Dickerson Road as you go toward Greenbrier. I don't know what percentage of that is commercial, but it was tiny.
it's only frontage.
My take on any of these, and quite honestly, as I read the bulk of this, my take on this is, as soon as you put this on piece of paper, the developer is going to do that and not even consider anything more. Like this is what they will, this is the design they will give you. Whatever percentage you require, that's what they're gonna give you. So every single thing in the whole city is gonna have this particular exact dimensions and this exact percentage in everything they do. And that may be necessary in some of these, we wanna have some standards, so I understand that. But when it comes to percentage of commercial, I wonder if we just leave that out. And we just have to approve whatever they propose and look at it and say, yes, we agree, or no, we don't. Because I really, there are some of those developments that it just doesn't make sense for it to have as much commercial. And there's others where, by God, it better have a lot of commercial. It's in a commercial corridor. It really ought to have. And so I would almost rather not have anything to guide them, because other than the circumstances on the ground as they're looking at it and trying to make sense of it and come in and defend what they've thought out and let us concur or deny it. I would assume from a staff position, it's a whole lot easier to have something on paper to hand a developer when they call and say, hey, what about this land? And you say, well, here, follow this and go.
They ask what we would consider enough commercial.
Yeah. And I think it's just, quite honestly, if you put 25%, there's gonna be land out there that isn't gonna be developed because nobody's ever gonna get there. They can't justify it. They're gonna build 25% commercial and it's gonna end up vacant for years and then not leave them enough to do the residential. And I don't want to limit that. I don't want to create that havoc, but at the same time, I kind of agree. 5,000 square feet out of 100,000 sounds minuscule to me. And I certainly want more than that in certain circumstances. So I don't want to tell them, hey, you know, meet this and come in here and you'll get a yes. No, I'm not. I don't want to convey that. What I want to convey is, look at the doggone site, look at what's needed in our city, look and see what the market will support, and come in and defend what you've come up with. And I think realistically, this board, what I've seen in this board is pretty reasonable people, looking at sites and seeing what makes sense. So but I don't know, maybe that does create too much havoc for y'all, and I do care about that.
No, I'm just, yeah.
It creates havoc
I
for us
guess so.
too, if we're trying to be consistent. You know, it's, but I somewhat agree with your assessment too, you know, I don't know.
Like Stonebridge's a good example. I mean, commercial would never go in the back buildings. So that was the only frontage. And the way the grade was up there, that was the only level. Hopefully we'll see some of those commercial tenants coming on. They supposedly got some signed up, so. One of them would be great use, daycare use would be great for that building. But yeah, we've talked to several tenants. It's some neat ideas they got with that building because it's something different than any other buildings we have. But, and then the whole Rivergate, that's gonna be a whole other world over there, so.
And one thing about that apartment complex, and I can't think of the name of it that you were talking about.
Stonebridge.
Yeah, a lot of those commercial buildings, if I'm not mistaken, were commercial in front, and then the owners also slept in the back.
On portion, one building was all commercial. One of them was a live
building was
work.
all commercial, the other was kind of a like a barber shop, and then the barber slept in the back room type, you know, or back apartment or whatever. Okay. Anything else, Billy?
This, with the amount of apartments that we have, you know, I won't entertain apartments for probably as long as I'm on this board, because we're already at 40% apartments to homes. So I think we've got ourselves in a bad pickle there. Anyway, I would be for putting up some kind of moratorium or whatever until the ratio changed dramatically with more regular houses that we don't even entertain it. But I don't know if that's possible or something anybody else cares about. But to get any more apartments is just not good for Goodlettsville, in my opinion.
All right. One last thing, August 25th, 6 o'clock, the goal is to have our 4th comprehensive plan review meeting. The goal here is to have a draft in place, kind of get where y'all can see where we're going to go. So that's all I have.
Any other comments? I'd like to say a couple things. First, an apology. I think I let the meeting get a little bit out of hand in that first topic with all the citizens wanting to comment, and I apologize for that. Anyway, the other thing is, young man over here on the front row, Kyle Keith, new residents of Goodlettsville, bought a house, plus he got married about, what, 2 weeks ago? 3 weeks ago. And he told me yesterday at church he's very interested in that sort of thing. I said, well, come on down. So he'd be a good person to introduce yourself to. So I'm glad he became a Goodlettsville resident. The third and final thing I wanted to say is that last month's meeting, I misspoke. You had all those bullet points on the latter meeting, and one of the bullet points was protect existing farmland from residential use or some form of that. Yeah. I'm sorry, what? The rural preservation. Yeah. And I said I was in favor, I misspoke. There's another worded bullet point that stated protect existing neighborhoods. That's what I was wanting to speak in favor of. And I think that we've done a good job of that because we've had this come up 3 or 4 times the last 12 months. And one of the items was on Caldwell Drive, where they wanted to change the zoning, you know, to allow that, and it was on the edge. And I was almost ready to vote for it, and I didn't vote for it. And I guess that's coming up again here soon. But I think we've done a good job on that. And then I was thinking about the farmland. And we know this is going to come up again on that section that was so controversial several months ago down Long Hollow Pike. And I got questions concerning that. A is, do we need to protect some of that farmland? Because that's when all those people come up again, when another developer comes up wanting to develop that property, they're going to come up and every one of them is going to be against, you know, disturbing the farmland, disturbing that rural area. And I guess it'd be nice to have some answers and some thought on that. And then I'd also like to know when this comes up again, and I feel like it will, you know, because their other complaint was, and I've heard this complaint from other people, if we allowed that property to come in, it's going to decrease the value of their property. Now, I'd like some facts or some discussion on, does that happen? And at what point does it help or hurt existing property owners? And so I just feel like this comes up a lot.
You can look at Sumner County's example. I don't know of anywhere where values have went down over the last couple of years. You know, Sumner County's had a lot of growth, but I don't know. I don't know. I'd be interested to see where they can show that the value of those properties went down due to what was beside them.
The value of the farmland plummeted whenever they required rural preservation zoning minimum of 2.2 acres per lot. As soon as they did that, the farmland in Sumner County plummeted in value.
We'll talk about farm preservation. Farming, it can only be farmland if the people who own it want to farm it. I think there's a difference between farmland preservation and open space preservation, because the people on Long Haul Pike, the owner does not want to farm it, they're wanting to sell it.
Right.
So the city can do whatever we want, we can say whatever, we're not going to annex it, but they can go up there and cut it off into 5-acre tracts by state law without anybody's approval. So that's really one of the biggest impediments to farmland preservation, is that you see across Sumner County, they've cut them into 5-acre tracts, do little, I guess, mini farms, and they're all over the county. So there's not going to be farms that, you know, 102-acre farms. And I've noticed too, a lot of farmers, the next generation don't want to, I mean, it's a hard life.
Yeah.
But that's why I think we try to make it where it's more about rural open space than farmland.
Okay.
But I can try to get a property
I just
appraiser.
know that we're going to be inundated on that probably within sometime this year, early next year, whenever it comes back up. So
Yeah, I don't know what's going to be the future of that project. Nothing recently on it, but yeah, I can try to get a property appraisal. Because, you know, a lot of times they say it goes to court, planning commission, Cape Board of Zoning Appeal, finding of facts. You know, people feeling it's going to hurt my property value. That's not really factual. It could be, but it's not factual unless there's a professional that can state that.
Well, if it's a like-built house, same material, same square feet, same driveway, same number of garage, it isn't going to impact your property value, because your property value should mirror each other. I know Mr. Parnell's realtor, and he can jump in anywhere he wants. My great concern is I totally applaud this board's work in creating the identity of Goodlettsville going forward. But there's also some other steps that we got to do, and that is to ensure that we are bringing our median household income up and some of the other things that are required that these restaurants look at. And when I say look at, I'm not talking about on site. You talk to a site selector, you talk to someone, they're just going to pull it up on the computer. They're going to see what you got and where you're at and say yay or nay or go from there. So I share that. I'm not sitting here saying I'd advocate for that project or any other project. I'm just saying that if it's equal to what is already there, I'm not sure what how it's going to diminish property value.
And real estate, Jeff tells, I mean, you can go downtown Nashville and have $1 million homes next to fancy townhouses, and it just really depends on the setting. So it's really property specific. Now, that'd be good to get appraisal, tell us what they look for.
Yeah, like I said, I just want answers to these, to the next time we have a 3-hour citizen comment thing. You know, I want some rhetorical answers to them.
It's funny, we're kind of in the opposite area where some of the residential coming in is driving up the value of the other ones that don't want it that high. We're kind of an odd situation now in Middle Tennessee.
Okay, well, I appreciate allowing me to speak on that. And any other comments?
At the beginning, next meeting, make sure you
Yeah.
comment, say it's for everything.
I agree. And, well, I was thinking this was gonna be a record short meeting. I was wrong. But, I was saying it's gonna be a real short one, so that's one of the reasons I allowed it and it got out of hand. I apologize, so. Anyway, I'll take a cut and pay for that. So, if there's no other comments, meeting is adjourned. Yeah.